A single conflict just sent a massive shockwave through the entire global energy system. And today, we're going to break down how this one crisis is fundamentally redrawing the world's energy map. It's creating new winners, new losers, and a future that's going to look very, very different from our past.
Okay, so let's just dive right into the big question, because this is what every world leader is grappling with right now. Does all this chaos speed up the move to clean energy, or does it kill the momentum? The arguments on both sides are frankly incredibly strong, and the answer could define global policy for decades.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the crisis itself. Then we'll get into the two big arguments, the case for a great acceleration versus the reality of the short-term squeeze. From there, we'll map out the new winners and losers and explore the new and kind of unexpected dependencies this whole shift is creating.
All right, so let's start with what kicked this whole thing off. A conflict effectively shuts down the Strait of Hormuz. Now, you got to think of this place as a critical artery for the world's energy supply. And it just got clamped completely shut. And the impact was, well, it was instant and it was brutal. A fifth of the entire world's oil supply just vanished from the market. Natural gas shipments were thrown into total chaos, and prices for pretty much everything, from the gas in your car to the fertilizer that grows our food, they just went through the roof. It was a single moment that forced every government on Earth to face just how vulnerable they were. Now, what's really fascinating is how this shock has energized one side of the debate. A lot of people are arguing that this crisis will actually act as a massive booster rocket for the shift to renewables. And this quote from the head of the International Energy Agency just hits the nail on the head. The whole conversation has shifted. You see, clean energy is no longer just some environmental issue. It's now being framed as a core piece of national security. It's about energy you can make at home, energy that no foreign power can ever threaten to cut off. And, this isn't like the oil shocks we saw back in the 1970s. Back then, we didn't really have any other options. But today, we do. And here's the huge difference. Solar is now the cheapest way to make electricity in most parts of the world. EV sales are surging. The tools to break our dependency aren't just sitting on a shelf. They're cheap, they're competitive, and they're ready to be scaled up, like right now. But, that is only half the story. There's an equally powerful argument that, in the short term, the sheer political pain from this crisis could actually slow the whole transition down. And this is where it gets really tricky. I mean, it's one thing to have a great 10-year plan for building out renewables and modernizing the grid. It's a whole other thing to face voters who are paying $6 a gallon for gas today. The immediate pressure on politicians is to do something, anything to bring those prices down. And that often means subsidies and policies that just lock us into relying on the very same fossil fuels that caused the problem in the first place. So because of this tension, the transition is definitely happening, but it's not happening for everyone at the same speed. It's actually creating a brand new global map of energy haves and have-nots. And this chart just illustrates that new divide perfectly. I mean, just look at China. In only the first half of 2025, they installed more new wind and solar power than the rest of the entire world combined. How? Well, because they invested like crazy in renewable manufacturing and EV supply chains years ago. They were just better prepared to handle this shock than almost anyone else. Okay, so this table really breaks down the New World Order. In the winners column, you've got China with its total dominance in manufacturing and Northern Europe with its advanced grids. But now look at who's at risk. You've got the Gulf states whose main export product is now on a faster track to being phased out. And you have cash-strapped nations that just can't afford the huge upfront costs to build all this new green infrastructure. But this transition, it isn't as simple as just swapping out one energy source for another. It looks like in our rush to solve one big dependency problem, we might be sleepwalking right into a completely new one. The old dependency was obvious, right? We relied on oil and gas from the Gulf, which was super vulnerable to choke points like the one we just saw. But is this new dependency any safer? We're now becoming just as reliant on Chinese manufacturing, which completely dominates the supply chains for solar panels, for batteries, for critical minerals. We're essentially trading one massive geopolitical risk for another. And this hunt for true energy security is sparking something else, a global nuclear renaissance. Faced with crazy fossil fuel markets and renewables that don't work all the time, countries are looking back to nuclear power for stable, reliable, around-the-clock energy. But of course, there's a huge geopolitical twist here that we can't ignore.
The undisputed world leaders in exporting and building this nuclear tech, Russia and China. And when they build a reactor in another country, they're not just selling a power plant. They are building deep political relationships and dependencies that can last for the entire 80-year lifespan of that plant. So all of this, it really brings us to the bottom line. What does this crisis actually mean for our shared energy future? We are standing at a genuine crossroads. Here's the simple truth of it. This crisis has permanently sped up the structural shift away from fossil fuels. That train has absolutely left the station, but it has also made the short-term politics of it all incredibly difficult and really, really messy. The choices world leaders make in the next couple of years will decide who wins and who loses the next energy decade. And this is maybe the most important takeaway of all. Trying to solve this problem by running back to the fossil fuels of the past, it's a trap. Real energy security isn't going to come from doubling down on the old system. It's going to come from diversifying into the new one. Because as this whole thing proves, there will always be a next crisis. So the technology to make this leap, it's here. The economic case for it is stronger than it has ever been. And the security reason is undeniable. The only thing left, really, is a question of political will, which leaves all of us with the final question. What choice are we ultimately going to make?